guys, so now that we finished the posting part of Berimbolo, we're going to get into the really exciting stuff now. We're going to get into the stack series of Berimbolo. Now, like I explained in the introduction, there's two ways I can accomplish taking my opponents back from the Berimbolo. One is stacking my opponent, and one is bringing their hips to mid. Now, you're going to learn the stacking part of this and why it's so important. I love the stacking style of Berimbolo. I use it so much now. I use it like all the time, and I think that is so effective because you don't have to worry about the person flat backing you or moving away once you have their hips above you. And the mechanisms of stacking the person with your legs is just so awesome. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you first what a stack is. So let's say I'm passing my opponent's guard and she's laying down. For me to accomplish a stack on my opponent, I'm placing her weight on her shoulders and her neck here. And I'm placing it on one angle of her body. This is how I can stack my opponent. Yes. This is how I can stack my opponent. Notice, her weight's all on her shoulders and her neck here. So every time I'm able to do this, what does that mean? Her hips are up. And what does that mean for me for taking her back? It's easier when her hips are up for me to take her back because I can get my hips under her hips. So it makes it so much easier for me to set up my back takes here. And now we're going to get into all the different positions I like to do from stack Berimbolo, how to stack the person, and how combining it together with other things. Okay guys, so now we're just going to get right into how to stack my opponent. And how I'm going to teach to stack the opponent, I'm going to actually teach it starting with the collar, and I'll explain why after. But basically, when I'm using the collar, it helps me stack my opponent easier. And this will teach you how to stack my opponent, and then when I'm using the hip, it'll be a lot easier for you, okay? So that's why I'm starting with the collar. And we're not going to get into the back take right now. I'm just going to show you how to actually stack her. So she's going to be flexing her foot. She's going to be here. I take it off. I clear. I get my knee above. I go under. Now, my person's here, and they're normal Berimbolo here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the ankle. I'm going to pull the collar. I'm going to bring myself into her one time. I'm going to bring my knee behind my knee like the basic Berimbolo. I'm going to flex my foot. And the detail here is I'm going to place this part of my knee under her hip just like before. And I'm going to keep my foot flexed. Now I'm going to beat down and I'm going to put her leg on the floor like so here. Now that her leg is like so here, I can control her hip. Again. Yes. I'm here. I go under here. And now I'm here. You see, so I turn my palm up, just like before on the collar. I turn my palm up, I beat my knee here, and my whole goal is to try to put her foot to the floor here. Now, look how my knee is sitting on her hip like this. This is so important because I'm able to keep her hips up now on my knee. Just like if I had my palm like this, right? Like before when I was showing you the basic Berimbolo, my palm, I'm using my knee in that spot of her hip. Now I'm stepping on the floor and I'm controlling her far hip. The reason I'm controlling her far hip is to reinforce her in the stack staying up. If I wasn't controlling this far hip, her hip could drop. So when I stack her, I bring my knee like this and my hand like this. What is this knee doing now? It's like I have both hands like this, right? But now I'm using my knee here. I'm using the collar to keep pulling her body up and I'm stacking her hip like this. Let's change sides. Guys, this is so important how to actually learn to stack the person, so really pay attention to these grips and how I'm lifting her hips up. I'm here, I go under, I put my knee behind her knee like the basic Berimbolo. I put my other leg behind her leg like this. Now I'm using the side of my knee, this part of my knee, on her leg here. And I'm flexing my foot, opening my hip like this. This leg is beating down, and now I pull her up. Look how much I can pull her up when I do it like this. I'm just flexing my foot, turning my leg, and I'm hammering this down to bring her foot to the floor, like so. Now I can cup her hip like this. Now, let's change angles. Just move your right this way. Now notice when I grab her hip like this, I'm not just grabbing her hip. I'm going behind her hip here and putting my hand like this, like a no-gi grip. I'm grabbing, I can, but I'm cupping. So now bring your hip down.
I can't see, but are you using your palm again?
I'm using my palm again, exactly. So just like the other grip when I'm like this, I'm using my palm on this hip like this. Now put your body down.
I can't.
Because I'm just sitting her hip on top of my hand. If I'm here, I'm on, she could fall. But when I go right below her hip, fall.
Yeah, I can't.
Yep, so now I'm strong here. I'm keeping her foot toward the mat, and I'm stacking her. Other side. But guys, again, pay attention to this. So lay down. When I stack her, if I'm passing her guard and I stack her standing, I bring her body like this, right? I'm doing that with my legs. The same exact motion here. With the collar, I bring her down. You see how it's exactly the same as passing the guard. It's just I'm accomplishing the same thing using my legs. And notice, when I'm here and I bring the stacker, I bring my chest up. This helps me bring her legs down. So here, I push, I stretch my arm, I straighten my arm. I got my hand to her hip here. Again. Again. Okay guys, so now we're going to go into how to take the back from the stack position. Like I've said many times, there's always two worlds to taking the back. And one way is going to be pulling the hips to you. The other way is going to be bringing your hips to the person's hips. So how I like to see this is I always try to pull the person's hips to my hips. And when they frame, then I bring my hips to them. So this first one, I'm going to show you how to bring their hips to my hips. Okay? So we're going to be here. I'm going to stack my opponent with the collar. Again, I'm going to go under. I'm going to stack my opponent here. I'm going to be pushing her hip like so. Now what I'm going to try to do is, as I'm stacking her, I'm going to notice that her hips are up. So I'm going to focus on putting my hook in. This bottom leg that was here, I'm going to make it a hook. I'm going to pull. Instead of pushing her away now, I'm going to pull and bring my hips. I'm going to bring her hips to my hips like so. Now I'm going to throw my hook in and take her back. Again. Here, I go under. I stack, I go here. I pull her hips to me. I bring my hook in here. As I bring my hook in, notice how it brings her hips to my body and how I can pull using this to bring her hips to my body. Now I can take her back. Again. And look, how I'm slowly pulling her body's hips to my hips. This is the hip I need to connect to my hip. So I'm bringing it to my hip like this. I'm putting my hook in to help pull her to me. And look how I'm using the collar also to pull her to me. Just like all the basic berimbolo before, how I bring her hips to me. I stretch. Now I throw my hook in. Again. And how I bring my hip under her body like this, that helps me pull her more to me. And notice, my head above her head. Now I can take her back. Okay. I just explained how to stack the person. Now I'm going to explain how you take the back from the stack. And this goes for all berimbolo. There's two ways to take the back. First of all, what is our major objective? Connect our hips to her hips. So once I make her stack and make her invert, the first way to take her back is by me bringing my hips to her hips. Okay? And that's what we're going to go over first right now. So I'm here. I get the collar. I'm going to do exactly what I did before to stack her. I'm going to make her leg go to the mat. I'm going to force all her weight onto her shoulders and neck. So now I can stack my opponent. So I'm going to go under. I'm going to go here. I'm going to stack her, bringing all her weight to her weight here. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to control the hip, the far hip, just like before. And instead of trying to pull her to me, I'm going to go on my head like so. I'm going to go on my head like this. And now I'm going to connect my hip to her hip. Throwing my hook in, and now I go to the seat bump. Again. Here. I grab the collar. I go under. I go here. I stack her up. So now look. Her hip is still away from me, but her hip is up and exposed. So I'm able to go to her back now by just simply bringing my hips to her hips. So for this one, we're going to keep her stacked by keeping my hand here. I'm going to pull, and all I'm going to do is put my neck on the floor. I'm going to turn onto my shoulder like this, like this. Now, look how I'm on my shoulder. I just connect my hips to her hips. So look what I'm doing. I'm just going on my shoulder. I'm using my hand and everything to balance by just going on my shoulder. A basic shoulder roll. Going on my shoulder. Connecting my hip to her hip. Now once my hip is connected to her hip, I can throw my hook in, and now I can think about getting my head above her head. So now I'm going to establish upper body control with this arm. So it's on the hip. I'm using this arm on the hip until I establish my connection to her hips. Then I'm going to establish upper body control now. Why am I establishing upper body control? To get my head above her head. My head above her head. Again. Here. Under. I stack her. Now I'm going to go on my shoulder. Simply by just going on my head like this. And I can use this to help me get up by straightening my arm. So move away. I'm just doing this. This is all I'm doing. Just here. I'm straightening my arm. I turn my elbow. I bring my elbow in. And I go here. Now I can throw my hook in. Grab the upper body and pull my head above her head. Again. My hip above. Now establish upper body control to bring my head above her head. Yes. Notice how I'm establishing upper body control. I can go any place I want. I can go under her shoulder like this. I can go above her shoulder. I can even go like this. I can go, there's many grips I can make to do this. But the whole concept of upper body control is just pulling her body below my head. That's all I'm doing. So there's many grips you could prefer to do here. I like this. I like this. I could even go here. But all I want you guys to focus on is bringing your head above. Bringing my head above her head. Okay guys, so now what I'm going to explain to you is a concept that I think is super important with the stacked berimbolo, and it will make complete sense why you're doing one and then why you're doing the other. So we're going to try to do one, and then when we try to do one, it's going to give us the other. And in Jiu-Jitsu, this is so important. Like I discussed in the introduction, how when I do one thing, it always baits the other thing. And in this scenario, it's the same exact concept, always. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to go for the stack on her. I'm going to stack her here. Now, when I get here, I'm thinking, okay, her hip is exposed. I'm going to bring her hip to my hip. So when I try to bring her hip to my hip, she's going to move her hip away from me. So look what just happened. I tried going here. She creates a frame, moving her hip away from me. Now, why did she do this? Now it's like she kept her hip away from me. She created this part of her body feeling heavy. So I can't bring it to me. So now I can go to her and take it back really easy. So I use her reaction against her. I pull it to me. She defends, bringing it away. Now, instead of forcing her body to me, I'm just going to go with her and take her back like this. Now, let's say I try to stack her. I'm trying to bring her hip up. Now she's bringing her hip down because she doesn't want to be stacked. Look what she just did. Am I going to try to stack her now? No. She put her weight here, so I'm going to bring her weight to me, just like for the other one. So it's always either or. She's going to give me one. I'm going to take the other. I go here. I try to stack. I'm trying to stack. She puts her weight heavy. I pull her down. I take it back. I try to pull her down. She brings her weight away from me. I take her back like this. So you guys see how they work together. I want you, when you're doing this position, to do in your mind, okay, I'm going to do this. Just to bait the other. That's what I'm constantly doing when I'm doing berimbolo. I'm thinking 2 steps ahead of the person. I'm thinking 1,000 steps ahead because I'm thinking of every variation and possibility at once. But in this scenario, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to stack her. So then she gives me the opposite. Or I'm going to pull her to me. So then she gives me the opposite. I'm always thinking how I could do the opposite versus one thing, so then I can get the other. And that's how you're going to start having to think. You're going to go into the spot, okay, I'm going to pull her to me. Defend, stack. I'm going to go to stack her. Defend, pull. That's how we have to think of this position, and I just want you guys to really pay attention to how we're thinking here and how to apply this and combine them together. Again, yeah. I go to stack. I try to pull her to me. She defends. You said I can't pull her to me. Now I go here. 1. I'm trying to pull her to me. She defends. Stack. 2. Now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to try to stack her. She defends, putting her weight on her hip. I pull her to me. 1. I try to stack her. She pulls her weight to me. 2. You see? Like we discussed before, how each grip in berimbolo changes the scenario just a little bit by the positioning of your body, but we're still accomplishing the same thing. Now we're going to get into how to stack the opponent using the near hip grip. So, like I said in berimbolo, there's 3 different families. There's like 4, but I consider the middle and the far hip the same family because their elbow placement's the same, but the collar is one family. The near hip is the second family. When I'm under and I have the middle, when I lay down, when I have the middle grip and the far hip grip, I consider these the same family because of how I have to use my elbow in both of them. So there's about 3 separate families in berimbolo. So we just went over the first family, how to stack the person with the collar. Now we're going to go into the near hip series, how to stack the person. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to get the near hip. Remember the ASIS, the bone, never soft tissue. Soft tissue is weak and we don't have pressure on her hip. She can bring her hip forward. So we're going to go right on the bone. So now I have control of her. I'm going to go under, and just like I explained before with stacking the person, we're going to do the same exact thing. But how are we going to do it? We're going to use our legs the same exact way. I'm going to bring my leg to her, bringing this part of my knee behind her leg. I'm going to bring my knee up. I'm going to lift her hip up using my fist right on her hip like so. And it's exactly the same stack as before, just using this hip grip instead to bring her body up. And notice, I want you to see how my elbow is on the floor here. You see how she's sitting on my elbow? This is so important, how I'm able to have her sit right on my elbow. Again, now I'm cupping her far hip just like before, keeping her hip up and getting the far hip with my hand. Again, other side. We're here. I'm getting on the near hip. Under. I'm here. I connect my knee to her knee. I bring my knee up. I bring my knee behind her hip to stack her. Like so. So again, my legs are flexed. I beat. I bring my knee behind her hip. I think this is so important for this one, how I'm bringing my knee under her body again. So it's the same thing as before if I had the collar, you see. How if I have the collar, she's in the same spot. If I have this grip, she's in the same spot. This is just helping me reinforce this near hip of her being stacked. And now I can cup her hip. But something I want you guys to understand is every time I stack my opponent, it's always going to be her near hip being stacked. Me bringing this hip up. So that's why it's so important, me focusing on this hip whenever I want to stack the person. Now I can connect my palm just like before, and I can cup her far hip, and we'll end here. So let's go to the other side. Okay, so just like I explained before how to take the back with the collar, I'm going to show you now how to take the back with the near hip after stacking the opponent. So we're going to apply the same concept we just learned, where when we do one, we get the other, and we're going to first pull the person's hips to us. So I'm going to get the near hip grip. I'm going to have to internally rotate her hip, bringing her knee in. I'm going to go under. I'm going to bring my knee to the floor. I'm going to bring my knee under her leg. I'm going to push her foot to the floor, like so. Now when I get here, guys, I'm going to cup her back hip. I'm going to pull her hip to to my hip like this, and I'm going to beat my hook in like so. So my foot is like this. I put my hook in, flexing my foot just like this. I connect my knee to her hip. I pull her body. Now I can get an underhook on her shoulder. I can grab her shoulder like this, and I'm going to take her back here. Again, the upper body control, just to bring my head above her head. The grips will vary. Many people do different grips here, so it's going to just be preference, and there's not one right grip. There's never one right grip here. You're going to have to just feel which one you prefer. But I'm going to give you every grip possible. So we're here. I'm going to control the hip. I go under. I stack her. I bring her up like this. I'm going to cup her hip. I'm going to put my hook in. I'm going to bring my knee behind her leg, just like basic berimbolo. Putting my hook in. I'm going to pull her to me. Now I'm going to get the arm, pull. I tied it up. I beat my leg down. I bring my leg here, opening my knee on the side of her body. I now bring her foot to the floor. I cup the hips. I put my hook in. So you see how my knee is here? I take my knee, I open my knee, putting my hook in, shallow. I cup her hip, I pull it to me. I get here. What just happened? My hips are connected to her hips. Now I have to grab I have upper body control to bring my head above her head. Now I'm on her back. Now sometimes fast. So now, like I did before, we're going to follow the concept. I pull her hips to me. She goes the other way. What does that mean? I'm going to pull my hips to her. So we're going to be here. I'm going to be here. Again, the near hip series. We're going to have the grip on the near hip, the ASIS. Under. I stack my opponent. I start bringing her to me. She brings her hip away from me. So now all her weight's on this hip. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my shoulder. Simply go on my shoulder. I'm going to go up like this. Now I can put my hook in. So the movement's like this. I just turn. I go on my shoulder. I hold the grips here. I try to pull her. She goes away from me. Now it helps me go on my shoulder because I use my arms on her body to pull myself up. And then I can roll onto my shoulder. So I'm here. I try to pull. She pulls away. I go on my shoulder like this. Now I can throw my hook in because my hips are connected to her hips. I throw my hook in. Now I just establish upper body control to control any part of her upper body that we want. Now I get my head above her head. And then take it back. Okay. Over here, we stack the person here. We get to the hip. I start pulling her to me because I want to connect my hips. So now I can't pull her to me, so I'm going to go to her. I'm going to connect my hips next to her by going to her. I'm going to pull. She helps me come up now. I put my hook in, and I put my head to her head. Again. Guys, if you feel like it's awkward to invert here, I'm going to make a grip on her ribs. So keep your weight back so when I pull you, you stay up. Yeah. I'm going to go on her ribs with this collar grip. Now I'm going to pull myself up. That collar grip can help you if you feel like it's a little hard to pull yourself up. Here, I go here. I start trying to go to the back here, pulling her. I come up like this. One. I feel like this is a little hard. I go to the ribs like this. Now I pull myself up. You see, it's a little easier if you need to. And now I can climb my arm down the collar line, like so, to get to the seatbelt. Again. Okay guys, so now we're going to learn how to stack the opponent with the third family of berimbolo, the middle and far hip grip, and you're going to see how we're able to accomplish the same thing as the other two just by altering the position of our elbow. That's the only thing that's going to vary in this. So, again, when we're going to stack the person, when we are getting them to go up, what are we doing? We're stacking this hip, right? Always the near hip is being stacked when we're doing the berimbolo. Now, I could be changing sides. I could be wanting to stack her on the other side, but when we're doing regular berimbolo, we're trying to stack this hip. So when I get a middle grip on her body here, what do I need to do? If I try to stack her like this, look how her hip doesn't come up. Why is that? Because we need this hip up. We need this hip up. So what do I need to do? If I have a middle grip or a far hip grip, all I have to simply do is change my elbow from being over here to going to the other hip. So I'll have any grip I want here, middle to far hip in this area. I'm going to bring my elbow right where it was before. So I'm here, I'm going to stack, bring my elbow right under her near hip. So now what is this? It's the same grip as this. Just the only difference is I have my elbow there instead of my hand. Now I can cup her hip here and I can do all my back takes. But I just need you guys to understand how important it is my elbow positioning when I have a middle or far hip grip. If I'm like this and I try to stack, no way, because I need to stack this hip, right? So all we need to do is bring our elbow under her hip like so. Now I can do the same exact stack here, cupping her hip the same exact way. You see, I'm able to keep her hip up because of my elbow forearm going under her hip. So we're here. Let's go again. We're here. How I feed the middle hip grip varies, but basically when I'm holding the hip grip, I'm able to slide my hand on her drawstring line. And that's how I can feed to the middle of our hip. I go under, my hand's here. So what am I going to do? See my elbows like this? I cannot stack her. No way. You see how her leg is now? I bring my elbow under her hip. Now my elbow is in the place of this grip. So I'm here. My elbow is in the place of this grip. Now I can stack her up. And all I have to do is bring my elbow up and connect my body like this. Now her foot touches the floor just like before. And now I'm in the same spot and I can keep her hip up like so. Okay. Again. Okay guys, so now I'm going to explain again the concept before pulling the hips to you, pulling up. But I'm going to explain it this time in one clip just because the other two I explained both times a lot and it's the same exact thing. But I just want you guys to feel comfortable doing both of those positions with this grip as well. Okay, so we're going to be here. And I'm just going to explain it, combining them together just so it's faster and you guys could see it with this grip as well. I'm going to be here. I'm going to go under, sliding my hand to the middle. Again, how I get to the middle far hip grip is literally on the drawstring line. My hand just slides on the line. So I start with a near hip grip, and it slides down. Slides down. So we get here. I bring my elbow behind her back. I'm going to do the same thing. Bring her body down and get in here. So for the first one, I'm going to pull her hips to me, getting my hook in, bringing my knee to her hip like this, and now I can pull her up like this, or this, or this, any way I prefer to pull her up. And now I can take her back. The second one, I'm going to be here. I'm going to go under. I'm going to get the middle far hip grip. Elbow's going to be under her hip. I'm going to beat down. I'm going to get to her hip like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pull. She brings her hip that way. I'm going to keep my hand on the hips. If I need to, I can go to the ribs to help me pull myself up. And now I come up like this. And I take her back. Again, I do one, they give me the other always. That's how jiu-jitsu is. We try to do one, trying to force it. They defend, we do the other. Here. One. Here, I start pulling, she goes away. One. I start pushing her up, she comes in. Two. I start pushing her away, she comes down. Two. Again. 1. I start pushing her away. She comes in. Sit. Now we're going to get into alternative levers that I could use to stack my opponent. So initially I use just this leg and my body, like the basic berimbolos, to stack my opponent. But another way I can stack my opponent is attacking this leg. And using this leg will help me and enable me to stack her exactly the same way. And I'm going to show you guys how this works now. So, like I discussed in the beginning of this series, how the angle of my opponent's hips is so important when I'm attacking the berimbolo. And each particular angle is a different angle I will utilize a certain back attack, right? And in this stack series, I'm going to show you another way to take my opponent's back without using just this leg. I'm going to be utilizing the other leg to establish the same stack control as before. So we're going to be here. I'm going to be Dalhiva. I'm going to start this with the near hip grip, just so you guys learn it with the near hip grip first. And then we can get into the other family groups. But we'll start with the near hip grip family. I'm going to go under here. And notice how my opponent's hip is away from me right now. I am not so much under her like this. My shoulder is not under her where I would stack her like this, right? So her hip is away from me. So it's going to be a little weird for me to stack her unless I get my shoulder under her body like this. So instead of doing that, I'm going to this time utilize this leg. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to make a grip on her far leg. I'm going to place my foot behind her leg. Again, the ladder bolo grip on her leg like so. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to think about the identical concept I did before. Bringing this foot to the floor by stacking my opponent. And I'm going to bring her foot to the floor like so. Notice, what position are we in? Exactly the same position as if I did it like this. Just my foot this time is on her leg like so. Okay? So again, I'm here. Go under. I'm here. So you see her hip is at a different angle this time. So for me to stack, I need to bring my shoulder under her hip. I need to bring my shoulder under her hip to do the initial stack. This time, the angle is different. So instead of doing the stack, I couldn't do it here because the angle is different. So now, I'm in the perfect angle to use my leg. You see how my leg is perfectly placed here? If I was here, it would be awkward to use my leg. You see how it's awkward? But because of the angle, I am looking toward her leg, I could easily place my hook right behind her knee. And now I'm going to focus on placing this foot on the mat and putting all her weight on her shoulders and neck. Stacking my opponent like so. Controlling the far hip. And now I'm in this spot again. I end up in this angle. So I'm not under the hips exactly. I'm staring at her leg. The angle I am is I'm staring at this leg like so. My head is aligned with behind her knee. Now I can do this. I bring her hips up. Again, controlling this far hip. Why am I controlling this far hip? Because now I could place her hip into my hip. Or if I try to pull her hip into me, she goes away, I could pull myself into her. If I feel like it's hard to pull myself into her and stay up, I stay like this again. It's hard for me to pull myself into her. Like, no, I'm pulling you, stay up. It's hard, like I'm having trouble getting on my shoulder. I go to the collar. I back up a drop, and now I come up. And I keep the back. Now I'll do it real speed. But again, you see how it's the same concept no matter what leg mechanics I'm using. I'm either pulling her to me, or I'm going to her. And I'm stacking my opponent by putting their foot to the floor, putting all their weight on their neck and shoulders. I'm here. now I'm going to show you another alternative lever that I could use to take the back in this alternative angle and stack the opponent just like before. Like I told you, these angles are so important with berimbolo, and depending on the angle I'm in is what I'll be using to attempt to stack my opponent. So we're going to be here, and I'm going to go under her, again, with a near hip grip for now. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to attempt to go to the ladder bolo like before, hooking here. I'm going to feel her leg is a little stronger, and it's going to be hard for me to hook this leg, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull myself in a little bit, and I'm going to bring my other leg on top of the leg. Now, look how I trap both legs inside her legs. Now, I'm going to lock my legs like so, hammering my legs down like this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm still going to focus on bringing this foot to the floor, like a stack. And now, I can pull her body into me, controlling her hip or ribs, pull her body into me, establish upper body control, bring my head above her head, and take the back. Let's go to the other side. So we're in this angle again, and now we're attempting to do the ladder bolo. Her leg feels hard for me to hook. I simply just take it out, trap both legs, and I do the double leg bolo. So we're here, I go under, I'm here. I try to go ladder bolo, I feel like it's hard. The angle of my leg is off, I don't feel like I can do it. I feel like it's hard for me to hook. Even if I'm getting here, my toes keep coming out. So I bring my other leg up, like this. I bring it behind the crest of my knee, just like this, just like before. So when I do regular berimbolo, how we bring it behind the crest of our knee like this, we're doing that with this leg. Now I lock my legs, and now this leg is hammering. So this leg hammers on top of my other leg to bring her feet to the floor. Now once I get here, again, I can establish upper body control with whatever grips I want to. I could go to the dog collar back of the head. I can go under her hip here. I just have to bring any type of upper body control to get to the back, to get here on her body. And here, I try to go here. I bring my leg up, I chop. I bring her body here. So when I get here, I get to do any type of upper body control. Another option with upper body control, I can grab the back of the head with this arm, and I can take the back. That's the one that Rafael Mendez did with Cobrinha World in 2015. He, instead of going to the back of the head with this arm, he climbed to the back of the head with that arm. Yeah. I'm just mentioning different people because it's so common, like all the different variations, you know, and so many of the top people that do this, they alter their grips. So I just wanted to give you one example of a grip alteration that Rafael did with Cobrinha, you know, in the World's Finals. So he was here. So here. I go here. The angle's off. So now I go to this. I can't get it. I go here. I go here. I can go to the back of the head like this. I can go to the armpit like this. I can go both here. It doesn't matter. Whatever I prefer to do. I bring my head above her head, and I take the back. Stand fast. Here, her body's this way. You see the angle is different than me doing the initial stack. Here I can do the initial stack. Her angle of her body changed. Now I'm not under this hip. So now I go here, she blocks, boom. Hey guys, so now what we're going to do is the other family of the hip control, and we're going to use the middle far hip family to attack the ladder bolo, and it's going to be exactly the same concept as before, trying to stack our opponent, and we're going to do it just altering our elbow position. So we're going to be here. I'm going to be in Del Hiva. I'm going to alter her foot. I'm going to get the hip, and I'm going to slide along the line of her drawstring. I'm going to slide along the line to get here. And now her angle's like this. But notice, my arm is sitting on top of her leg. So she's on the floor, but she isn't on the floor. And now what I have to do is I have to bring this foot to the floor and I have to stack her. So again, if my arm's like this, no way am I going to be able to stack her because I need to bring this hip up. So I get my arm under her hip, so now my arm's sitting on her hip. I'm going to control the leg like this. I'm going to use my elbow behind her back like so and place her foot on the floor using my elbow on the far hip. Again, every time we stack the opponent, near hip, we stack. Doesn't matter if I have this grip all the way over here. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle. I just need to place my elbow acting the same way as if I had this grip. And now I can stack her, and I can pull her to me, or I can go to her. And here, I get the grip. I slide my arm down. I go here. I try to stack. She angles her body in a way where I can't stack her now with the initial position. So now I control her leg. I bring my foot under her leg like so. Now I bring her leg up, and I'm going to make this foot touch the floor using my elbow under her near hip to bring her body up like so. I pull. I connect my knee. 1, 2. Again. It's very important how I'm keeping my elbow under her body. So my elbow is in place, ready to stack her, just like if I had the near hip grip. I use my forearm and elbow right behind her back like this. Now it's difficult for her to come back because she's getting stacked. And I cup my hand on her hip like this. Now I can take her back. She angles herself. I can climb to the upper body, whatever I prefer. Here. Again, just so you see the trend of all the stack positions. I bring her foot to the floor. Always the near hip is what's being stacked. I connect my hips to her hips, either by pulling her to me or pushing or pulling myself to her, and then I establish upper body control to climb my head above her head. So now what we're going to go into is exactly like before, the double leg berimbolo from this angle of her body. And we're going to be utilizing the middle far hip family again. So let's do it. When we go under, again, along the drawstring line, I'm going to feed my hand to get to the middle far hip grip. I'm going to go under, middle far hip grip, and now her body's on top of my leg like so. I'm going to try to feed my foot like this. I'm going to feel like it's hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go on my arm and bring my leg above her body. Using my elbow again on the far hip like so. Using my elbow on the far hip as if I had this grip. Now I cup her hips and I take her back. If I feel like it's a little hard, I pull her upper body to me and I take her back. So every time I'm here, to get to the middle far hip grip family, I'm going to feed my hand along the drawstring line to get to here. Now again, if her body was in front of me, like this, we can start attempting to stack. But because the angle of her hips, this is what's going to make me do the double leg or ladder bolo. I want to go ladder bolo. I feel like the angle's off. I feel like her leg is moving away from me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this inside leg. I'm going to put it on top of this leg. And just like I was before beating like this, I'm going to beat like this. Now I'm going to place this and lock my legs like this. Putting this foot on the floor, like again, all stacked family berimbolos. Putting this foot on the floor, bringing all her weight to her near hip, taking it back like this. Now I can control the back of her head and the arm. I can just go to the arm like this. I can go to her shoulder. I can feed the back of the head like this. So many different variations of grips here. And you're going to have to feel which one you prefer. I could even use one to climb to get to the other. And now I can bring my head above her head and take the back.